we're live. There we go.
We're doing it live.
Hello, everybody out there in the universe that's hopefully watching us. I'm Cher Martinetti, the managing editor of Blastr Fangrrls, and tonight I have two amazing people joining me for this Google Hangout. Oh, we have Haleigh from, I'm sorry, I'm like getting Foutch from Collider. And we have Alicia, whose last name I'm going to say wrong too. Lutes.
Lutes. You said it right.
I'm the worst at last names from the Nerdist. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm very, I can't wait to talk about this. This conversation topic is going to be a fun one. So you guys saw what happened with the whole Cliffy B tweeting how Olivia Munn is appropriating nerd culture.
Yeah.
And it basically stemmed from Olivia saying that she did her own stunts in X-Men Apocalypse, which is inaccurate. And based on that, Cliff decided that she is appropriating nerd culture because she's a bad person, which apparently he has a personal issue with her, vendetta with her, because he knows people that worked on Attack of the Show with her, and allegedly she had made claims to doing things that she never really did, or she was exaggerating about her nerddom. Whatever the story is, whatever the bullshit is, to be honest, that whole appropriating nerd culture thing, it's not the first time that that's been said, or that a woman or female's been accused of doing that. So I wanted to talk to you guys and see how you feel about that whole... Let's first talk about the Olivia Munn thing. What did you feel about that?
You know, I have a very complicated set of feelings about... Like, I don't know Olivia Munn personally. I know that a lot of people have issue with her, especially in geek culture and the geek world. So I try to just stay out of that whole thing of it, because I feel like it's just, we're putting around, but people give her such a hard time, I feel like, more than anyone, because of either, you know, how she handled herself on Attack of the Show or otherwise. And I think it's one of those things that's very silly and ridiculous to me. I don't feel as though appropriating nerd culture is actually a thing, because nerd culture is something that you're not born a nerd, you know, you sort of like find things that you love and that you enjoy to do. And that may be part of the larger bubble of nerd culture, but it's something to me that I get very frustrated with this whole idea of this even being a conversation point. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's something that doesn't make sense in the larger scale, because we all come into nerd culture having not been like, you're not in the womb and they like stick a little nerd semen in the egg and they're like, oh, this one's a nerd, here we go.
I mean, we don't really know how you got in the womb, so maybe that is how you got. But my big issue with it is that, first of all, you can't appropriate nerd culture. You're not, just like you said, you're not born a nerd. That's not a race. It's not that type of identity.
It's not a sexuality. It's not something that you cannot control.
Right. And the other thing too is that's taking claim to ownership of everything that falls under nerddom, and unless you are a creator, you can't claim ownership of anything. So I feel, to me personally, it seems like a lot of the time the people that are throwing out that whole appropriating nerd culture thing they tend to be white fanboys, and I feel like it's kind of, you know, a little bit of like the epitome of white privilege there, where it's like, well, now we need to feel like we're being, you know, repressed in some way. Haleigh, what do you think?
I think the phrase appropriating nerd culture is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. I can't believe it's a real conversation that's actually happening, for all the reasons you guys said so eloquently, but it's something that doesn't even mad, because I think it doesn't make me mad, because I think it's so darn goofy. Like, you don't own it, you weren't born into it, you have no say over it as one individual, and just because you have like a bunch of friends who think the same way also doesn't give you ownership of it. It just kind of makes you all real goofy. And as for Olivia Munn, like, no, obviously nobody creates and does their own stunts that's an actor. That's crazy. But I honestly don't see how that led to the conversation about her appropriating nerd culture. I don't see how those two things are connected. Like,
they're not. He blatantly has a personal issue with her.
right.
That's
Now,
where it totally comes from.
wait, what was that?
I said that's just totally where it comes from. Like it's this I'm mad about a thing, and sometimes people when they're really mad about something, they can't quite figure out what, like, pinpoint exactly what it is that they're frustrated about. So if there's something that just frustrates them that's tangentially related, it gets thrown into the mix. And I feel like with Olivia Munn, it's just like anytime Olivia Munn says or does anything, especially in the world of like geek and nerd culture, which she grew up in and you know, she worked in, and outside of whether or not you feel what she likes and dislikes and does and doesn't do is nerdy enough or geeky enough for you, it ultimately stems from they have a problem with her as a person for reasons that have nothing to do with whether or not she's a true nerd. You know what I mean? Like, it's gatekeeping, ultimately, is what I feel like it is.
Gatekeeping, because when do you ever hear them say, oh, Tom Hiddleston's not geeky enough, he shouldn't be playing Loki? Like, where do you hear this happening to male actors or just guys in general? It's like, where's this imaginary nerd quiz that exists in the universe that we're all supposed to take, like our SATs, to get allowed into the College of Nerdom? Because it's just, it's not a real thing. It's just not a real thing.
It's completely ridiculous, and I think it's one of those things that's most frustrating to me about like nerd and geek culture in general is like, guys, you're just doing to other people what has been done to you your entire life. Like, why perpetuate this negativity and this idea that you have to be enough of something, or you have of something enough, or you have to know enough background information, minute details about a thing to truly be a nerd? Love a comic book or love doing the stuff, and if people love it, whether or not you like that person as a person doesn't mean you can be like, no, I'm sorry, because you don't like this enough as I like it, or because I don't like you as a person, or feel as though because either you like or do other things that are outside of the sphere that I consider nerddom, I'm not going to like you and I'm not going to allow this.
Yeah, are you
breaking
off this thing now? Haleigh, what do you have to say about that?
Well, it's an interesting thing too, because trying to put all these restrictions, like she was saying, like you have to know this trivia, what ship they were flying, what blaster they were using, all of it, it doesn't mean anything. But what's even weirder to me, this idea that they're putting themselves in a position of victimhood that's completely unnecessary. And that's never a good place to start. Like, everything's fine, but I'm going to be a victim because I feel that someone owes me something or a justification for what they love. Nobody owes you a justification for anything they love at all.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I think, you know, Alicia kind of hit on it before, too, with the whole, they are simply doing to other people what has been done to them. And I kind of think that's what it is. It's like they're the people that do claim, and I don't want to say they, it's like every single person that likes nerdy stuff or sci-fi or whatever. There are plenty of males that are like, this is the most ridiculous thing. Even when that whole thing happened and Twitter blew up, you know, you had Neil Gaiman, you had you had a lot of notable creators within the genre making fun of that and being like, this is ridiculous on Twitter. So it's not every single guy that likes nerdy stuff or likes any of the stuff that feels this way, but that group that does. You know, I think it's a lot of they're coming from a place where they felt they were picked on their whole lives. They latched onto this thing that gave them security, where they felt safe, where they felt they had people they could relate to. And now that the people that they always deemed as the bullies are infringing on that, just because, listen, nerd culture is not niche anymore. It's mainstream. Like it or not, it's mainstream. And I think the whole becoming part of the mainstream thing, like, they are not doing well with it. So now they have the power to try to, like, isolate the people that they felt isolated them for however many years in their life for liking this kind of stuff. And that may or may not be true.
Yeah. It's also, like, a matter of possessiveness, I think, as well. Because, like you were saying, for so long, it wasn't in the mainstream, and now it is. I think a lot of people feel like something was taken from them, something that was like maybe personal and was shared with just them and a little group of their friends has now blown up, and it belongs to everybody, and I think sharing's a little hard. It's sort of like when you were younger and you knew about a band first, and then they got popular, and you were like, oh. But we're not kids anymore. You're like, oh, you share. Just share. It belongs to everyone now.
Yeah, and you know what, frankly, like, if people with these big names and these big personalities weren't attaching themselves, these movies wouldn't get made, and this culture that is like sort of evolved out of this wouldn't exist. Yeah. So, you know, I get very frustrated.
I mean, it's incredibly frustrating, and it's like, again, you know, like you said, it's 100% gatekeeping, and it's sad because it doesn't help fandom in any way, shape, or form to act like that. You know, like, I understand, like, Comic-Cons become this huge thing, and there's so many more Comic-Cons that are sprouting up all over the place, but it's like, guys, like, if anything, the more the people want this, the more it's going to get created, and that should be an empowering thing, you know, because at the end of the day, like, whether it's a comic book, a movie, if it's sci-fi, if it's, you know, fantasy, any type of fiction, the more people that buy into it, the more people that are interested, the more that gets created, the more people are going to get inspired by those stories, and then in turn, it's like the cycle continues. It's like, I don't understand why you would want to keep this to yourself and hoard it and make it inaccessible to other people when their participation is only going to open up, you know, the availability and how and where this all goes, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, word. So another thing too, I had actually seen on the internet, which was, there was a post about the Mary Sue posting about this entire situation with Olivia Munn, and then how it turned into this whole episode of people being offended by the offense people were taking to the fact that Olivia Munn said this thing, which at the end of the day, this all started from her misstating or misrepresenting how much of her stunts she did in this movie. Which, listen, she's not the first time an actor has said that they've done their stunts in movies. I think if anyone should be insulted by that, it's the stunt woman who did the stunts. And if she has an issue with it, then she's every right to have an issue with it. But let's not be naive. No insurance company is allowing their stars to do any stunt that's going to possibly harm them, because they're never going to get the insurance for it. It's just not going to happen.
No.
Yeah. So let's.
And she might have done some of them, but she probably doesn't really realize.
Those ones. Yeah. Like Scarlett Johansson probably does a couple of like the easy things when she's playing Black Widow, but you know, we all know her stunt woman is the one that's, you know, doing all the crazy stuff because that's her job as a stunt woman. But there's that whole competitive victimhood thing that took place off of this, and it was not just something that exists here, but it's like within the Twitter sphere, it's like you're not allowed to let somebody else be offended because you have to make sure that everyone knows that you're offended too. So how do you guys feel about that? Anyone? Bueller?
Haleigh, you want to?
Well, I'm going to let you start that off because that's actually something I kind of, even as a really progressive-minded, very proud feminist like person, I have a hard time understanding being offended all the time because I don't care what a lot of people think about my life choices or my culture or how I identify. And I understand that, like, there's a line when people are saying things that could impact your livelihood, your rights, your right to happiness. Those are things that, yeah, I get pissed off and angry about. But when someone's just being an ass on the internet, that's just like Tuesday, you know? So I have a hard time getting the cycle of just outrage, the outrage cycle. I have a hard time buying into, which is why I was going to let someone else field that question first.
I mean, what do you think, Alicia? We were talking about this a little bit
about specifically. I'm sorry, you guys keep cutting out a little bit in a minute. so I'm like trying really hard to stay abreast of the conversation, but it's also cutting out a bunch.
All right, so
No, like it just did right now.
I can't even hear. We lost her. She's dead. What is going on over at Nerdist Industries that we're losing you?
Oh no! Wait.
Is it the neon sign? It's the neon sign.
It might be.
It might be.
I'm sorry. It's cutting out quite a bit.
It's okay. Are you there?
But okay, so let's get back to the topic at hand. Just reiterate to me. I'm sorry. What's going on?
Haleigh, you want to recap that?
The recap
competitive victimhood.
Yeah.
Oh, competitive victimhood. Yeah, we were talking. Yeah, I'm like technical quagmire. Yeah, so prevalent in our
I can hear
culture. It's every time.
We can't hear you.
We're missing your beautiful words.
I don't know what's happening. I'm sorry, guys. I feel like I keep talking over you, and I have no idea because you guys just everything keeps.
No, you're good now.
Okay, great. Anyway, I'm definitely the best part of this whole entire thing and not messing it up at all. No, but like the idea of this competitive victimhood in Oscar way, we saw people, people that you would think are like very intelligent and very, well spoken, people like Helen Mirren and Charlotte Rampling saying like, oh well, like it's really bad for women too, or well, it took us a long time, and it's completely missing the point because we're talking about one victimhoodness, one area of being a victim of something, doesn't discount other victims of that same thing. And by not having the conversation about that one particular area of being a victim doesn't mean that that conversation has to include every single instance of being a victim of something. And so it doesn't surprise me that competitive victimhood is sort of driving this conversation. I think I grew up as nerds and dork geeks because we have been victims of shitty things out in the world in our daily, and we're now at a place where being nerd is sort of hot, not a lack of a better term, and so it feels like I think it's one of those things where people finally feel like, oh, we're almost getting our footing, but at the same time they have this monkey on their shoulder, which is the fact that they were a victim for a very long time, and it creates a jump that removes the nuance from having a conversation or a group or a situation. Is sort of how I feel about it.
The parts that I heard sounded really good.
Oh, this is so great. Yay. I'm so glad it's working so well. I'm so glad I sound like so half-garbly intelligent.
No, the parts I heard were awesome. I got what you were saying. Another thing that I speaking of the whole, like, and I think this kind of flows in from the competitive victimhood, is that never mind that I can't even deal with that whole appropriating nerd culture thing to begin with, but I actually had seen that people were taking issue with the show The Big Bang Theory. And they were calling it, I saw it referred to, and I wish this was a joke, nerd blackface, is what people were calling it, because the internet's amazing, and they think like, yeah, no. And it's like, wow, like that is totally, like, you really don't even go there to begin with, but like, let me be honest, The Big Bang Theory is just not funny. Like, I'm not insulted that, like, oh, that they're taking these references to pop culture references to really popular and famous titles and properties to begin with, and that they're attempting to make a show of it. That doesn't really bother me. It's just not funny. But then again, I don't think Pluck Lawyers shows are funny. So, like, I'm more insulted that that show keeps getting renewed and wins awards when there's, like, way funnier shows that should be getting those accolades. But the nerd blackface thing.
That's offensive that they would even use the term nerd blackface.
Right?
First of all, I also fucking hate The Big Bang Theory. Sorry, Chuck Lorre, if you ever see this. Not a fan. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's interesting. I think a lot of people have said in so many other words, so much more eloquently and hilariously than I could do. It's just not a funny show. So the idea, like, that it's not nerd blackface. Like, it's just a show made for the most popular network in the country, which has to appeal to the lowest common whitest denominator, and that's all it is. Like, if you don't like it, don't watch it, but don't get upset about its existence as if it says something about who you are as a person or a nerd just because it exists.
Right. I mean, and if you wanted to, I would be more insulted that they're stereotyping that, oh, if you're a nerd, you're either a skinny white boy or Indian. Like, that's...
Yeah. Well, it also goes more to what you were saying earlier. This doesn't belong to us. Like, whatever Big Bang Theory wants to use as a, empty punchline, it's not mine to be upset about. It belongs to everybody. If Chuck Lorre wants to go do dumb jokes with it, he has every right to. I don't have to like it, I don't have to watch it, and I don't do either of those things.
Right. I mean, a perfect example is like, there's just so many examples. Like, now that I'm thinking of it, there's this whole, again, back to fans taking ownership of something, and they're not the creator, so they shouldn't be the ones that are taking that stance. It's like, at the end of the day, you did not make this. It's not your property. You're enjoying the property. Like, comic books, movies, whatever, they're all another form of media that are there for the person to consume however they choose to consume it, whether it's, going all in and becoming obsessively fanatic about it, or if it's just dabbling in it casually. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. But that being said, being that we're all females that work in the industry, I want to know how, from each of you, this whole appropriating nerd culture thing if it has affected you, or if it's been something that you ever have had thrown in your face at any point. Haleigh, let's start with you.
Oh, I've been lucky, to be honest, for the most part. I mean, like I said, if someone's an ass on the internet, that's just Tuesday. That doesn't bother me. I get that a lot in the comments or whatever, but that just makes them look bad, in my opinion, when they're like, oh, she's a female writing about science fiction. I'm like, well, you really just said more about you than you did about my writing. In terms of, like, I guess it does manifest a little bit in more real ways that I wish it didn't. But that's sort of about the great thing about our industry, is even if there are people who are trying to, like, keep it a little bit of a boys' club in what they're doing, there are just as many people who aren't, because we've, well, maybe not just as many, but a lot. And I've had to, I've been lucky enough to work for really cool places like Collider, where it literally never comes up. Everything's great. So I guess when I see something like that, when I hit a wall in that way, of this idea of a boys' club within the industry itself, and not just, like, dumb people on the internet being mean, that is, I think that's something in our industry we're lucky enough to be able to work around in some ways. And I'm grateful that this is one of those industries where you can, because I know it's not like that in all of them. Mm. What about you, Alicia? How's it been for you?
I agree. I've been also very fortunate in that nobody has ever really, the only people that ever question whether or not, like, I'm nerdy enough are people on the internet. More specifically, like, very, very devout Game of Thrones book readers will get very upset because maybe I haven't reread George R. R. Martin's books 8 times, so I don't know the very, very most minute, fine details. But other than my Uber driver on Saturday when I was going to WonderCon, he was like, "You don't look like a nerd." Everybody, here at Nerdist, and in other places I've worked, they're not questioning my nerdiness because they see how excited I get about Orphan Black, Game of Thrones, anything science fiction, some sort of alien, space, whatever, and they know, like, oh no, this girl's seriously a nerd. And my whole entire life, I have always looked the part of a nerd, whatever you want to say about that, is specifically in, like, 90s and early aughts when I was just a wee lootie. But, yeah, it's silly to me personally, and I feel very lucky that I've never felt this need to, or never felt I was in a situation where I had to prove myself in that way.
Yeah, I wish I could say the same as both of you. I've definitely had situations where I felt a little of the gatekeeping happening, and it's something that I dealt with not just from internet commenters. I mean, I've had lovely things said to me on the internet, but I've had it happen with men in the industry too sometimes, and it could be possibly a little bit of the whole. Because I haven't been doing this as long as them, I think that comes up. So I think it's the whole competitiveness of, like, if someone feels like you're encroaching on their territory, or that you might be taking something away from them that you're really not. I don't know what it is, but there's definitely been instances where, it's my nerdiness has been called into question, and maybe it's because, I don't like everything. And that's one thing that, I do catch heat for. I actually have people comment about how, oh, I don't like Doctor Who, or because I'm not super into something. I'm of the mind that you cannot be that into everything, because if you are, there's no way you're really paying attention to all of that stuff. And I'm the kind of person, like, if I'm going to be into something, I'm really going to be into it. That's going to be my thing. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to, like, research stuff about it. And there are not enough minutes in an hour, in a week, in a day, in a year, in a lifetime for me to possibly know all the stuff that's out there and genuinely know it well, So, and just not everything's for me. So I think that, because I'll very obviously, I mean, like, Game of Thrones is a perfect example. I don't hate Game of Thrones, but it's just not, I never got super into it the way most people have. I haven't read the books, and maybe that would change. If I read the books, I would feel differently about it, but, I watch it because I have to for work. I understand why people like it, but it's just not my bag, Same with Doctor Who. Like, I've watched some of it, and I'm like, okay, I see why people like it, but it's just not for me. And that seems to be a problem. Like, now, because they're two big properties, like, I am not a real nerd.
Yeah. Well, that's something sort of similar to that also kind of drives me crazy, and I've definitely gotten more flack in that regard, is if you don't blindly love and follow or believe that everything something is doing in a property is good, that means you don't really like it or you're not really nerdy enough. I've had this instance with an ex of mine who, because I had constructive criticism and didn't necessarily appreciate what was happening on Doctor Who this past season for the most part. He's like, "Do you even really like it then? Like, if you don't like this season, does that mean you really like it?" And I'm like, you can't tell me what I do or do not like just because I don't like it to the same degree that you do or something. Like, that is I've experienced that before, where people, if you don't like something enough, or if you have critiques of it, they either think that means you don't like it at all, or that means you couldn't be a true enough fan about it, which is so fucking stupid, to be quite honest. And it's okay that I don't like most of what Capaldi's done, even though I think Capaldi is amazing, okay?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm a huge Foo Fighters fan, and, like, I think their last album was not good at all, but that doesn't mean I'm not a Foo Fighters fan. Like, I'm ridiculous when it comes to Foo Fighters. So it's just such a weird, I mean, that happens a lot within fandom anyway, but I definitely feel, and I don't know why, there's this weird sexism where it's like, girls can't really genuinely like it unless, oh, you probably liked it because your boyfriend or some guy you liked it. Like,
yeah.
Listen, I'll be honest, when I was younger, yeah, I got into this stuff because my brother's 8 years older than me, and he had a whole bunch of Star Wars stuff, and that's how I learned about Star Wars, and that's where I got into it, but I wasn't, like, trying to get with my brother. Like, I was just like, oh, this is cool.
My dad made me a nerd, but, like, it wasn't like I could really avoid that and be like, oh, no, Dad, that's your thing.
Yeah, and who cares how somebody got into something? Isn't the fact of the matter that they got into it at all and they enjoy it and they appreciate it and you have that common ground with that person?
And if you think about it, all the boys out there that are fans of stuff, they probably got that from their parent. So it's like they didn't come out of the womb, like we said in the beginning of this, born a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, with like every inch of knowledge about the canon and everything just like naturally embedded into that. Trust me, that would make my life a whole lot easier if that were the case, but it just ain't science.
Make our jobs easier too, man.
Oh, can you imagine?
If that was like a course I could have taken even in school and like just know all this stuff, it should be. Do you hear that, educators? You should make these classes in like secondary school.
Nerd class. It will be useful to someone.
It will. Seriously. Which I think is why it's even more important that women that work within the industry, whether it's us or that are creators, that write, that are comic book creators, whatever it is that they're doing, whatever their job is in the industry, I think it's why it's even more important that young girls or younger women see that you can do this for a living, because I think it'll help start to like sway that whole mentality of you need to know all this or you're a girl, like, and it's starting to sway a little bit, but it's got a long way to go. But that being said, where can we find you guys? You guys have anything you want to plug to the internet out there?
Alicia?
Oh, no, I don't have anything to plug per se, other than the website that I write for. This guy named Chris Hardwick started it. It's called the Nerdist. Like, it's not really a big deal. It's just like this tiny little place. No, I would love if you're Orphan Black fans, please keep it locked on Nerdist, because I was on set and got some amazing video stuff from it. So, like, we're going to be the place for all of your sick. Yeah, what is right? It happened. It's amazing. For all of your Orphan Black needs. So I'm super duper pumped about that. We've got like 5 or 6 videos coming out that I've helped create. But otherwise, you can just find me on Twitter. That's probably the easiest place, which is just @Alicia Lutes. You can just like talk to me about things. I like talking.
You do. You're pretty funny on the Twitters.
I
know. Do you have any are you going to be doing any panels or anything soon coming up? What's the next Comic-Con you're doing? San Diego?
Yeah, I think that's the next big one. I know that Dan Casey here will be at Emerald City Con. If any of you guys are going to that up in Seattle, you can keep an eye looked out for him. He'll be there. But yeah, the next big thing will be Comic-Con, and I know for a fact that Nerdist is doing some pretty fucking sweet shit for Comic-Con. So definitely get excited for that, because I'm pretty excited about it.
Haleigh, darling, what about you?
I don't have any Orphan Black scoops, sadly. But,
rub it in, Alicia.
Rude.
That's probably looked down upon. I'll probably get pulled out of here by the editor-in-chief. I'm just sharing this stuff with everyone. It's fine.
What do you have going on? Anything?
I'm always just writing about whatever my latest obsession is on Collider. I turn that into my articles, which is recently Daredevil, so you can look to me for lots of Daredevil content. And you can find me on Twitter @Haleigh Foutch, which has all the vowels in order because it's a weird spelling. And tweet Daredevil things at me, and I will talk about them. Also, Hamilton, obsessed. We can always talk about that.
And your puppy. You got a puppy.
Yes.
Didn't you just get a puppy?
I did.
We need more puppy videos on Twitter.
Okay. More puppy pictures, I promise. Or you can check out my Instagram, Haystack McGroovy, for so many puppy pictures.
Nice. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining me tonight. And everybody that's watching, or if you had any issues watching or streaming, we're going to be posting the video link to YouTube once it's nice and polished and ready, and we bleep out all the F-bombs that somebody from Nerdist dropped.
I always get in trouble for swearing.
We could bleep it. But until then, make sure you can follow me on Twitter @TheShareness, or you can also follow us, Blastr Fangrrls, on Twitter. Yeah, we'll catch you guys next month, and we're having a really good talk next month too. So thanks, ladies. Hopefully I'll see you guys soon in real life. not just here.
Yes.
Yeah.
The internet, real life.
Until then, I'll see you on the internet.
Yes.
Awesome. Bye, guys.